I am 82 years old, and I am sitting alone at my kitchen table. The house is very quiet now. It is the kind of quiet that settles into the walls, the kind that you can almost hear ringing in your ears if you listen closely enough. It is the sound of a life that has wound down. I have lived a very long life. By most outward measures, I have lived a good, respectable life. I have children who call me on Sundays to check in. I have a pension that pays the bills. I have a lifetime's worth of photographs in silver frames on the mantelpiece, showing holidays and graduations and golden anniversaries. But there is a truth I have carried silently for more than half a century. It is a heavy thing to hold, and it gets heavier as the years strip away everything else. I spent my entire life loving the wrong person. I don't mean I was the victim of some grand betrayal. I don't mean there was a scandalous affair, or a sudden dramatic shattering of vows, or a terrible shouting match in the rain. Those things are terrible, but they are loud. They force you to look at them. They force you to act. My mistake was quiet. It was a slow, daily choice to accept a love that was not meant for me. It was a tragedy of convenience. If I close my eyes, I can easily go back to the beginning. I was 24 years old. It was a completely different world then. The culture had a script laid out for you, and you were expected to memorize your lines and hit your marks without asking too many questions. You met someone from a good family, someone who was sensible, someone who held a steady job and looked like a safe harbor in a world that was always shifting. When we met, I thought I was being incredibly wise. I confused stability with connection. I thought that because we agreed on how to save money and what kind of neighborhood we wanted to live in and how many children we wanted to have, that we were building an unbreakable foundation for love. I didn't realize that a foundation is just cold concrete. It doesn't keep you warm in the middle of the night. We married in a small traditional church. I can still remember the smell of the lilies near the altar. I remember the heavy weight of the gold ring slipping onto my finger. And I remember a very faint, very quiet voice in the very back of my mind whispering, "Is this it? Is this all there is going to be?" I ignored that voice. I told myself to grow up. I told myself that the sweeping, consuming, passionate love you read about in novels was a fiction meant for foolish children. Real life, I told myself, was about compromise. It was about duty, so I compromised. I began to fold myself up into smaller and smaller pieces to fit into the life we had chosen. In my 20s, I thought the distance between us was just the growing pains of a new marriage. We were busy. We were building careers. We were exhausted. We were learning how to share a bathroom and a budget. I thought the friction was perfectly normal. In my 30s, the children came. And the children were a beautiful, chaotic distraction. When you are raising little ones, you don't have the time or the energy to notice the vast chasm growing between you and your partner. You are passing each other in the hallway, like co-workers on a busy shift change. You are entirely focused on the mechanics of keeping these tiny humans fed, bathed, and happy. I poured absolutely all of my love into the children. I let that be enough. I convinced myself it was enough. I told myself that this was what family meant. But the children grew up. They went to school. They drove away to college. They started their own lives in other cities. And suddenly, the house was empty again. It was just the two of us left in all these rooms. This is when the silence truly began to take root. We didn't fight. That is the greatest tragedy of it all. If we had fought, there might have been passion. There might have been a chance to break things open, to scream, to cry, and to find the bloody truth inside. Instead, we just accommodated each other. We were polite. We were like two polite strangers trapped in an elevator for decades. We asked about the weather. We asked what was for dinner. We discussed the neighbor's new fence or the strange noise the car was making. I would sit across the dinner table from this person I had shared a bed with for 30, 40 years, and I would realize that they did not know me at all. They did not know the things that made me cry when I read the news. They did not know the fears that kept me awake at 3 in the morning. They did not know the dreams I had quietly buried in the backyard of my youth. And worse, far worse, they did not want to know. When I tried to share a piece of my soul, it was met with a blank stare, or a practical, emotionless suggestion, or a gentle, patronizing dismissal. "That's nice, dear," they would say, turning their attention back to the television screen. Over time, you stop trying. You learn that it is profoundly less painful to keep your rich inner life to yourself than to offer it up on a platter and have it completely ignored. You build a wall around your heart, brick by heavy brick, not to keep them out maliciously, but to protect yourself from the freezing cold of their indifference. The damage of loving the wrong person is never a sudden wound. It is an erosion. It is water wearing down a stone. It is the slow wearing away of your spirit. It is the 100,000 tiny moments where you swallow your words because it is easier than explaining yourself. It is the thousands of evenings spent sitting in the exact same room, feeling more desperately lonely than if you were sitting entirely by yourself in a desert. I gave up my hobbies because they took up too much space or made too much noise. I stopped talking about the books I read because my enthusiasm made them feel uncomfortable. I dimmed my own light, year after year, so it wouldn't glare in their eyes. I thought I was being a good partner. I genuinely believed this was what commitment looked like: endurance, sacrifice, martyrdom. I didn't understand until I was old that true love does not require you to permanently erase yourself. I spent years waiting, just waiting for a moment of profound connection that never ever came, waiting for them to look at me across the room and finally see the person I truly was. I told myself, maybe next year, maybe when we finally retire, maybe when life slows down and we take that trip we always talked about, we will finally find each other. But we never did, because you cannot find what was never there to begin with. The clarity came to me very late, tragically late. It wasn't on a milestone anniversary or during a dramatic argument. It was a completely ordinary Tuesday afternoon in the middle of November. We were in our late 60s by then. My partner had fallen ill. It was a serious diagnosis, the kind that drops the floor out from under you and reshapes your entire world in a single afternoon in a sterile doctor's office. I immediately became the caregiver. It was my duty, and I did it. I drove to the endless appointments. I managed the complex schedules of medications. I sat in uncomfortable vinyl chairs by the hospital bed, listening to the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. And as I sat there one evening, holding a frail hand in mine, waiting for the worst to happen, a terrible thought entered my mind. It was a thought so dark, so piercing, and so honest that it made me feel physically sick to my stomach. I realized I was not afraid of losing them. I was sad, yes. I felt a deep, profound human sorrow for the physical suffering of another person. I cared for them. I felt a lifetime of heavy attachment and shared history. But the crushing, breathless panic of losing your soulmate, the feeling that the entire world would end, that the sun would not rise tomorrow if their heart stopped beating, it wasn't there. The panic was entirely absent. Instead, beneath the layer of sorrow, there was a quiet, deeply shameful feeling of inevitability, and an even more shameful whisper of relief, the thought that perhaps the exhausting performance of my life would finally be over. When they passed away a few months later, people surrounded me. They hugged me. They told me how strong I was. They held my hands at the funeral and told me that 50 years of continuous marriage was a beautiful, rare legacy. They told me how much I must be hurting. I nodded. I accepted their warm casseroles and their condolences. I wore my black suit and I arranged the floral displays. But the grief I felt was not the grief they thought it was. I was not mourning the person in the casket. I was mourning the life I never got to live. I was mourning the love I never got to experience. The kind of love where you are deeply, truly known. The kind of love where you don't have to shrink yourself or hide your thoughts or apologize for your own existence. I stood in that green cemetery, surrounded by well-meaning friends and weeping family, and I realized I had spent my youth, my middle age, and my twilight years maintaining a polite illusion. And now, here I am, 82 years old, living in the quiet. The hardest part of this realization, the part that keeps me awake when the house is dark, is that time only moves in one direction. I cannot go back to being 24. I cannot walk backward down the aisle of that church and out the front doors. I cannot reclaim my 30s or my 40s or my 50s. That time is gone forever. It was spent paying a debt I never actually owed. My hands are wrinkled now, covered in spots. My steps are slow and deliberate. The window for starting over, for going out into the world and finding that great consuming love, has closed for me. The energy required to build an entirely new life with someone else is something I simply no longer possess. I look in the mirror above the sink, and I see a face that has weathered a lot of silent, invisible storms. Sometimes, on long afternoons, I pull out the old photo albums from the closet. I see the two of us smiling on a beach in Florida. I see us cutting a birthday cake. I see us standing proudly beside our children at their graduations. To anyone else looking at those pages, it looks like a successful, happy life. But I look closely at my own eyes in those pictures, and I look so incredibly tired. Even then, even in the seemingly happy moments, there is a deep, bone-level weariness that comes from carrying the heavy weight of an unfulfilled heart. I cannot fix it. That is the hard, cold truth I sit with every morning over my black coffee. I cannot undo the choices I made in the name of safety and obligation. I have to live the rest of my days in the house that those specific choices built. I am not telling you this to ask for your pity. I do not want it. I have made my peace with my life exactly as it is. I am telling you this because I know someone out there is listening right now, and you are doing exactly what I did. You are lying in bed right now next to someone who feels like a total stranger. You are telling yourself that it's just a rough patch. You are telling yourself that it will magically get better when you get a new job, or when you move to a new city, or when the kids are finally older. You are convincing yourself that passion is overrated, that true connection is a myth, and that financial security or social approval is enough to build a life on. You are shrinking yourself. You are quieting your voice. You are settling for a love that requires you to be less than you actually are. You think you have time. You think you have decades left to figure it out. You do not have time. Time is a brutal thief, and it works in absolute silence. It doesn't rob you all at once in the middle of the night. It steals from you day by day, month by month, year by year, until you wake up one morning with gray hair and a heart completely full of ghosts. Do not stay out of duty. Duty is a terrible, suffocating substitute for love. Do not stay because you are afraid of being alone. I can promise you from the bottom of my soul, there is no loneliness in this world quite like the loneliness of being with the wrong person. It is better to be alone. It is far better to have an empty house than a house filled with the wrong kind of quiet. My days are very simple now, very slow. I read the newspaper. I watch the birds at the feeder in the backyard. I listen to the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. I have found a sort of peace in my solitude. It is an honest peace, at least. I no longer have to pretend to be someone I am not. But sometimes, when the evening light hits the window just right and the shadows grow long across the floorboards, I let myself wonder about the life I didn't choose. I wonder who I might have been if I had been brave enough to walk away when I still had the chance. I will never know. I am 82 years old. My story is mostly written. The ink is dry on the pages, but your book is still open. If this meant something to you, if you recognize even a fraction of yourself in my words, do not wait until you are 82 to tell the truth about your own life. Go. Be brave. Find the love that lets you be exactly who you are.